What up, good people? It's me, Johnny, back at it again with another video. And whoop, he did it again. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are back in the Super Bowl again for the fourth time in the past 5 seasons. Now, that's something that has not been done since the Buffalo Bills between 1991 to 1994. The difference is, of course, that the Chiefs have won. Sorry, Bills fans. But what Patrick Mahomes, along with Andy Reid and the crew, has done is truly remarkable, of course, led by Mahomes. Now that they are here, there's been a lot of talk already about is he the GOAT already, which I think is a bit premature, but the talks about where does he rank all time though are actually super valid, I believe. I mean, when you look at some of the things he has accomplished already in his still young career, it's safe to say that he has had, and can be argued, has had the best start to a career of any quarterback. I mean, heck, any NFL player for that matter. He's a two-time league MVP, two-time Super Bowl champion and MVP. He made the All Pro team 4 times, two of those being first team All Pro, which is a crime since he's been playing for 6 years. He's one of 8 players to throw for 5,000 yards in the season, and he and Peyton are the only ones that could say that they've thrown for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns in the same season. I think it's safe to say that, Patrick is already a first ballot Hall of Famer, even if he loses this Super Bowl. But what would a win actually do for him and his legacy? Well, first, in case you haven't, listened to my breakdown of who I believe are the 10 greatest quarterbacks of all time that I did a little while ago, here's a list that should be showing up on the screen right about now of the 10 greatest quarterbacks that I believe that have played in the NFL. And as y'all can see, I had Patrick Mahomes ranked number 4, and that was before this latest accomplishment. I currently have Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, and of course, Tom Brady the GOAT ranked ahead of him. So, with a win, if he wins, this coming up Super Bowl and he gets another Super Bowl MVP, how far up that rank would he actually go? To rank him versus, these 3 quarterbacks I have in front of him, I'm going to dissect this 2 ways. The first will be looking at, current averages and how they stack up. The second, when it comes to cumulative numbers, what I'm going to do is project Patrick's stats out by his averages based on, the person I'm comparing him to's how long they played in their career. So, for example, Peyton Manning played 17 years, I believe, total years. I know it has more, but he was hurt, so I took those years out. But 17 years Peyton Manning played, I'll compare Patrick Mahomes to those same 17 years from the cumulative number standpoint and see where he lands. Outside of this Super Bowl, which yes, I'm going to actually give to him for the sake of this video, projection will only be with those stats. So no, like, oh, he's going to get another league MVP, any of that. First, let's take a look at the averages when we compare him to Peyton. And when we look at the percentages for where he ranks versus Peyton, I mean, Patrick so far actually leads him in a lot of the pure game total stats. He leads them in yards per game, completion percentage, touchdown percentage, interception rate percentage, success rate, yard averages, passer rating, and some of those. Now, Peyton does lead him in QBR and game winning drives, but again, and some other stats down below with regular season MVPs, all pros, and Pro Bowls, and even, overall statistical titles, meaning how every time they played, how many years that they lead the league in a certain metric, right? Compared to their contemporaries. Peyton leads on that, but when you look at the percentages, Patrick Mahomes, of course, George Peyton Manning, and a lot of those stats. When we project out what I believe Patrick Mahomes will do over a 17-year career total, as we see, he's going to throw for more yards, he's going to have more touchdowns, less interceptions, a higher completion percentage, completions, and attempts. With a Super Bowl win, and by these projections, I would put Patrick Mahomes above my guy Peyton. Now, I know that's tough to say, but if you look at it, even though him and Peyton both have 2 Super Bowl titles, Patrick Mahomes was the best player on his team for both of his wins, versus we already know that last year in Denver, Peyton Manning was nowhere near his team's best player. He kind of just won that Super Bowl as a right on quarterback. No disrespect. Peyton's my guy. But if Patrick Mahomes wins, I'll move him ahead of Peyton Manning. Comparing him to Joe Montana, much like Peyton, Patrick clearly dwarfs him in averages. And when we look at projected stats, right, he pretty much dwarfs Joe Montana in all of those numbers. With that said, though, Joe, for the youngins out there, that never got to see, him play and never really watched football before the 2010s, the game back then was way more geared towards, running backs. The passing game wasn't valued the way it is now. So yes, Joe, Montana's numbers doesn't come close. But I do think this is still a real debate. I know the argument, by Patrick Mahomes fans, and I've heard this said over the media, I've saw this said on social media, is that Patrick may not have more Super Bowl wins than Joe, but he has way more talent. Because of that, he at least has to be, if he wins, has to be at least above Joe Montana. Not a bad case to make. However, with Joe having a few more accomplishments, I don't think it's just a slam dunk to put Patrick Mahomes over Joe Montana. Personally, I can't hold it against Patrick for taking advantage of these current rules and dominating like none of his other peers have done so far. Since I know, yes, this is a passing league, but Patrick Mahomes just happens to be dominating in this passing league much greater. I mean, honestly, you can go either way on this one. And for me, I'm going to give it to Patrick slightly over Joe, but not by much. I mean, look, if you want to argue to have Joe still over Patrick, even with Patrick, winning this Super Bowl, and again, this is contingent on him winning. So everything I'm saying can go out the window if he loses. Well, at least as far as him going up above Joe Montana. But I'm going to actually, put him ahead of Joe slightly, not by much, but slightly. Now, let's actually get to the GOAT, Tom Brady, and let's compare Patrick to him. And for me, this is when the conversation ends. As great as Patrick is, and he is currently the best in the league, I need to actually see him win more before I actually even compare him to Tom Brady. I'm not saying he has to get more than 7 Super Bowls. Whoa, Town got 7 Super Bowls. Anyway, I'm not saying he has to get more than 7 Super Bowls to pass Tom, but I would say he has to at least win, somewhere about 5 or 6 and play I'm saying he has to play as long as Tom, but at least has some longevity off in there to even compare him. I think, though, if he does play as long as Tom, he will have all the passing records, probably by a lot. And for me, if he gets stuck on 3 Super Bowl wins and he just has all the passing records, it's not going to be enough to move him any higher than number 2. But that's what I think. But let me know what y'all think in the comments if you agree with me. And what do you believe he will end up ranking all time when it's all said and done? But until the next video, I hope you all have a good one. Take care.